Hello everyone, this is Zero Kimchi and welcome to Winlator 101. After over 5 months of extensive testing of games and various forks, it is time to compile my findings on how to properly set up Winlator, get games to work effectively, and better explain some of the options and features. In this comprehensive guide, I will share my insights and recommendations to help you maximize your Winlator experience, from initial setup to troubleshooting and understanding key functionalities. This guide aims to provide a clear and detailed roadmap for both beginners and seasoned users alike. In this guide, I will be using Coffincolors Winlator Cmod version 11 revision 2. However, based on my experience, AJAY's Winlator 8 offers higher compatibility for 32-bit games. Let's jump right in. Before creating a container, it is advisable to gather all the latest Winlator dependencies. This may offer optimal stability and performance. However, this may not always be the case, as these components may regress at times. Alternatively, you may choose specific dependencies based on your particular needs or preferences. All my Winlator videos contain links that direct you to the download page for these dependencies. There are links to each Winlator forks, links to most released WCP files for Box, DXVK, Turnip, and Wine. For Box 64, you need to visit this website and tap on the Actions tab. Scroll all the way down, make sure you have a GitHub account to reveal the download button, then choose Box 64 latest release WCP. This will download a zip file which you will need to extract. Once you have gathered all your files, let's go into Winlator and navigate to the Contents menu. Here you will find a drop-down menu. Select the component you wish to install from this menu to proceed with your setup. In example, let's install the Box 64 I downloaded earlier. Just select Box 64 and tap on Install. Tap OK. Browse to the extracted WCP file. Select the file and tap on Continue. And done. All the other components here installs the same way. Let's now open the main settings of Winlator. In this section you have the option to select a specific Box 64 version to use when booting a container. It's important to know that the container will utilize this Box 64 selection. You can select a Box 64 version on the game's shortcut which overrides this, but I'll cover this later. The Box 64 presets are a crucial aspect of your entire Winlator experience. It is essential to pay close attention to this part of the video, as this component significantly influences the initial behavior and overall gameplay of your games. These presets play a vital role in ensuring both stability and performance during your gaming sessions. When you first start off with this section, you will have stability, compatibility, intermediate, and performance available to you. All of these presets have different variables enabled or disabled. I know what you're thinking right now. Oh my god, this is going to be such a daunting task. However, you'll appreciate to hear that you don't even need to touch most of these at all, except for the rare outliers of games, which somebody possibly may have tested and found the working setup for. If not, well then you're on your own with testing. But no stress, because I will share the golden rule of the box presets. 90% of the time, what you need to focus on is Safeflags, Bigblock, and Strongmem. Winlator 8 introduces editable fast round, but I've not seen anyone find any benefit from it yet. But expect this to be widely used by future Winlators in some way. Probably. Anyways, Safeflags, Bigblock, and Strongmem. I call these the 3 tenets. Is it cool? I hope you like it. Otherwise, suggest a better name. The 3 tenets because Safeflags handles the flags on call and return opcodes, which can prevent booting crashes, crashes on loading screens, etc. So mainly, if it does not go in-game, think, okay, I gotta use Safeflags. Bigblock, in short, this is your performance handler, mostly kept at 3. However, some games use their own JIT, just-in-time compiler, like Unity games with mono-bleeding edge, and prefer a value of 2 or less. More on that later. Strongmem. This can prevent freezes and crashes, most commonly used for Unity games, however with the drawback of having performance degradation the higher the value. Because of this, it is recommended to add the recently introduced Box64 Dinarec weak barrier with a value 1 or 2 to decrease the performance degradation by Strongmem. Beware, many games do not like a value of 2. These are the ones you will focus the most on. The presets I recommend creating are all based on the performance preset, so duplicate it and then adjust accordingly. 030. This is the uncompromised max performance preset, which is the first one I used to test. 130. With this preset you can fix most non-in-game crashes, so boot and loading screen crashes. 230. Same as the above, but Safeflags won't work, although it's been noted by others that this may cause performance degradation. I personally have not experienced this as of yet, it might be game dependent. 031. For when the game boots fine but crashes at some point in-game, especially Unity games. I'm sure you are familiar with this screen. 131. Some games just don't want you to play and have both boot, loading screen and in-game crashing points. 231. Same as above, but somehow one Safeflags does not do the trick. These are all the pillars that keep the 3 tenets consistent. But recently a new one appeared. One that was actually long recommended to experiment with, but was never picked up by mainstream users, such as myself, not gonna lie. At the beginning I was like most of you, being like, more testing and experimenting. So enter Box64 Dinarec CALRET. This variable you will most commonly use on Unity games. Unity games with mono bleeding edge contain their own JIT, just-in-time compiler, which causes stability issues when having CALRET enabled and more than 2 Bigblock. Rarely, some games do work with CALRET off and Bigblock 2 or 3. However, as of my recent findings, thanks to Hugo on the MU Gear International Discord, it seems Unity games may benefit the most by having 000 and CALRET off. However, this will need more testing. So far I've only tested 2 games, one a Pixel 2D and the other a 3D game which did not benefit at all. And that's it for the 3 tenets. Moving on. There are a few notable variables, like Box64 AVX, which some games might require, like Death Stranding, and I'm not sure what else, to be honest. It's not super common, but you can easily Google what games need AVX instructions. The max CPU setting allows you to limit the number of CPU cores being used. While I haven't personally needed to use this setting, I have utilized the affinity setting in-game instead, particularly for Dead or Alive 5. This adjustment can help optimize performance, especially for some 32-bit games, which tend to perform better with fewer cores. Then there is Box64 Unity Player, which basically applies Strongmem 1 when a Unity Player DLL is detected. It is advisable to leave this off, since I covered how to handle your presets previously anyway. If we scroll further down, you will see Use Xidi extension. Awkward name for the Dutchies, Xidi. For devices equipped with the Adreno 7 series GPU, it is recommended to keep this feature enabled. However, if you encounter persistent crashing issues across various games on the latest Turnip version, some users have found that disabling this feature may help resolve this problem, for Adreno 6 series GPU, that is. Next, enabling logs. Enable Wine Debug and enable Box86 Box64 logs. Enable this option to gain insights into the underlying processes during freezes or crashes. This mode provides detailed information, helping you understand and troubleshoot issues effectively. The most effective method to troubleshoot a game is through the container. This approach ensures that logs are preserved, whereas running the game through shortcuts will result log loss if the game crashes. You can save the log and it will tell in which directory it is being saved. Now let's take a look at the containers. Containers are basically your computers. Each one of them has their own environment, their desktop, settings, drives, etc. Doing a change in one won't affect the other. Playing a game and saving the game in one won't write the save game in the other. Your game dependencies like DirectX, Visual C, redistributables, Nets.frameworks, etc. won't work across each of them. The rationale for installing different Wine versions stems from compatibility considerations due to occasional regressions and varying dependencies and other things like controller input detection added or removed by different developers who compile them. No single Wine version can cover compatibility for all games. Therefore, having multiple versions available ensures better flexibility across the diverse gaming experiences. I keep multiple Wine versions on hand primarily in case another user provides concrete evidence of compatibility issues or benefits. Beyond Wine versions, it's beneficial to create multiple containers with various combinations of game dependencies, such as DirectX and .NET Framework. This approach ensures better compatibility for different games. Some users even take it a step further by installing containers on a per-game basis. This method is both smart and efficient, allowing for tailored setups that cater to the specific needs of each game without breaking the other. Just keep in mind that dependencies take space. So if you are creating 20 containers for 20 games, that means you'll have DirectX, Net, Point Framework, etc. taking 20 times the space. Let's go ahead and take a look at the container settings now. Most of these are pretty straightforward. Screen size to adjust the resolution you want the container to render in. Note that most games will always boot up with this resolution and you won't be able to change it to a higher one in-game. It's not an exception, however. Here you can select a Wine version. In graphics driver, you have the option to use Turnip or VirGL. Turnip supports OpenGL and DirectX 9 up to DirectX 12 games, while VirGL supports OpenGL and up to DirectX 9 games. Snapdragon devices can use both, while everything else is stuck with using VirGL currently. However, VirGL is broken on Winlator Cmod version 11 or revision 2, which will be fixed on the next update. In DX wrapper, Wine D3D translates DirectX to OpenGL, which is most useful for older games. DXVK translates DirectX 8 through 11 to Vulkan. This is the main wrapper we use for newer games. VK-D3D translates DirectX 12 to Vulkan. Heavy to use in most cases, it's better to use DXVK for now. CNC-D-Draw is another wrapper for very old games, largely unused as far as I know. Having selected DXVK, a cogwheel will appear on the right. On the next window, you can select a version and adjust several options. Frame rate allows you to place a cap on your FPS. Max device memory does like the name says, but best to leave it on default. When having selected VK-D3D, a cogwheel will also appear for adjustable options. In here you can select the version of VK-D3D and also a feature level. Some games require a specific feature level. There's no one setting that fits all, so you will have to adjust according to the game's needs. However, usually the game will crash and tell you which feature level is needed. Next, audio driver. You can select between ALSA and Pulse Audio. Some games may have broken audio with one or the other. MIDI sound font might be important for games that use the MIDI format. So far I've not come across any though. LC All, the icon on the right, allows you to set a language for the user interface inside containers. The Show FPS setting is generally not recommended, as it does not accurately reflect hardware analytics. Instead, I suggest using DXVK HUD, which provides more precise and detailed information. Also, Coffincolors is currently working on the implementation of Mangu HUD, which will be a better alternative. Enable full screen mode for stretchy boys like me. Then everything else I'd leave default, except GPU name. Some games detect the GPU your device possesses to ensure it meets the required features. Therefore, it is important to spoof a GPU that encompasses all the necessary features for the game, such as VKD 3D featured levels. I typically set these to Radeon Pro V620VF or RTX 3070 to achieve optimal compatibility. Win components we don't touch, unless something really specific related to those components need to be changed, but in all my testings it was never the case. Environment variables, I would leave all these default and just add a couple of things. DXVK HUD with your preferred settings. Mesa HUD VK instance layers with value VK layer Mesa overlay. Optionally, you can add VK layer Mesa overlay config with value FPS, device equals 0, format equal 0 to make it show FPS, device ID and adjusting its size. Gallium HUD with the value simple, FPS. This makes a HUD appear for OpenGL games. Box64 Dinarec Weakberry with value 1. As previously explained, it is highly recommended to use this setting in conjunction with Strongmem with value 1 to mitigate the performance degradation it may cause. If you are using Winlator 8, please add Box64 mmap32 equal 1. This will allow custom Turnip drivers to work on this Winlator. In some cases, you might want to add IR3 shader debug with value no booped. This can fix graphic glitches in some games like Final Fantasy Type 0. In the Drives tab, you can set a preferred directory as a drive, which also allows you to configure SD cards as drives too. However, it's important to replace this line with storage when doing so. If this replacement is not made, the drive will not appear correctly. Lastly, let's check out the Advanced tab. In this section, you can choose the Box64 preset that the container will use when booted. Startup selection can be adjusted to optimize resource usage by startup services. Setting it to aggressive is generally believed to reduce resource consumption. However, in some rare cases, certain games may require normal or essential services to function properly. For example, Ubisoft games might still need the Ubisoft launcher. While these instances are uncommon, it's important to be aware of them to ensure compatibility. Game Controller allows you to switch between the newer API, Xinput, and the old controller API, Dinput. If you have issues with controller detection, try to switch between the two. Processor affinity largely depends on your device. There aren't a lot of games that benefit from disabling cores. I keep it as shown here. You may experiment with it. Let's go ahead and boot up a container. Once booted, the first thing you may want to do is install the needed dependencies for a lot of games. On Winlator Cmod version 11 revision 2, they are all in the start menu. Navigate to Runtime Libraries and install all the dependencies available here. Next, navigate to Patches. If you like to use game repacks and are having trouble with them, you can try installing this. Some games require X audio, like Lies of P, so I recommend installing everything in here too. Start with the bat file at the bottom and work your way up until X3D audio. And that's pretty much it. A lot of other dependencies are already installed within Cmod, but it's entirely possible you may need to download some yourself, such as some version of NetPoint Framework and XNA, which some games such as Celeste requires. If the previous steps are insufficient, you may consider using AJAY's Prefix mod, which provides additional dependencies and game-specific fixes. This mod changes the location of your game's configuration files and saves from the C drive to the D drive, ensuring they remain even if you uninstall Winlator. This feature is especially useful if you are using multiple instances of Winlators and want them to access the same saves. However, please note that you will need to install AJAY's mod on all Winlators for them to read the saves correctly. You can get this from the link in the description of the video. Once you've created a container and booted it, navigate to where you downloaded the X and launch it. Wait for it to finish installing. After this is done, restart the container. The start menu will have a new entry called AJAY Start Menu. AJAY now added the functionality to automatically download updated dependencies uploaded on his GitHub. To get updates in AJAY start menu, tap on Update 1 Component Scripts BAT and let it download everything. Once that is done, you can go ahead and run Install Necessary Files BAT. This will install the necessary dependencies for you. Let it do its thing, and once it's finished, restart the container. This will, however, not install everything. You will still need to install certain dependencies of the Offline Components menu. From there, I suggest installing Xaudio, Xaudio 2.9 and launch the install VC all-in-one BAT. And now you're pretty much good to go. Next, I will explain how to run Unity games. First, make sure you have Mangu installed. You can either get it from AJAY's Prefix mod or install yourself through the Start menu System Tools. Do note that this is still not a method to fit all. Some games may still not work at all and may depend on other things that are not supported by Wine or Box64, for example. It was previously a common belief that Unity games only run properly with Strongmem set to 1 or 2. Another two options to prevent Unity crashes were Force GVX Direct in the game shortcut settings, which disables multi-threading and limits the game to a single thread. This has the same effect as Strongmem, but with slightly less performance degradation. Sometime later, Box64 Unity player variable was introduced. However, this seems to be introduced for convenience to apply Strong Memory 1. Finally, Strongmem was reworked and Box64 Direct Weak Barrier was introduced to be used in tandem with Strongmem to lessen the performance degradation. Anyways, the three tenets change here. Instead of the previously explained tenets, we got Bigblock, Strongmem, and CALRET. For some games, but rarely, you can get away with a performance preset of 030. However, if that does not work, try the following presets. 031. If Unity games freezes or crash with the above, then try the next ones. 021 with CALRET off. 000 with CALRET off. Alternatively, you can substitute Strongmem 1 with Force GVX Direct in the game shortcut. To determine if a game is unlikely to work with CALRET enabled, you can inspect the game's directory. If you find a Mangu Bleeding Edge folder, it indicates that the game may be using just-in-time JIT compilation. In such cases, it is advisable to disable CALRET. This will not only allow the game to progress further, but also revert the lost performance that Strongmem causes. Alright, let's go ahead and create a shortcut for a game so I can explain that next. Let's go back to the main menu, go to Shortcuts, you will see the game icon here. You can customize the container settings as needed, and every adjustment made here will take priority over the container settings. Be aware that each time you create a shortcut, it will adopt the settings of the container in which it was created. In the Advanced tab, you will find settings that mirror those of your container. Feel free to adjust these settings as needed. If you scroll to the bottom of the tab, you will notice an Execute Arguments box. This box is used to input arguments that the game will use when booting. For example, in the 2019 version of Resident Evil 2 Remake, which supports DirectX 11, you might use the argument DX11 to switch from DirectX 12. Tapping on the icon to the right of this box will reveal several preset arguments for your convenience. There are many arguments that can be used here. In general, if you have ever used arguments on Steam, then you can use them here too. Next, let's see what options we have to fix physical controllers on Winlator. As most of you may well know, input detection has been an incredible thorn on our side. So here are the solutions we so far have. The game controller settings in the game shortcut settings or container. The direct input mapper type drop-down menu allows you to select the legacy mapper type, which is inherited from previous versions of Winlator. This option can be useful if the game prefers traditional input mappings methods that were available in older versions of Winlator. Alternatively, you can switch between X input and D input APIs below this. Xidi libraries. Xidi can sometimes fix input detection in certain games. It's been reported that it would also fix touch controls input. To use Xidi, get it from the link in the description of the video. Extract its contents and move them to the game directory next to the game X. Afterwards, in the game shortcut environment variable list, add the following variable. SDL2 fix. This is the fix to make gamepad detection work in games with SDL2 libraries, which can be found in the game folder, same place as DX. But sometimes this is embedded in DX. You can also consult pcgamingwiki.com, searching for the game and checking the middleware section for any mention of SDL input. In the game shortcut environment variable list, add the following. Exec arguments. These arguments were found to work on Hades and Hades 2. It is unknown what other games this might work on. Next is not really a solution but more of a workaround. If you own a handheld device, then it's likely you also have the capability to set controller layouts with a built-in key mapper. Since this communicates directly to the physical controller, you can use this over the touch overlay of Winlator, which usually works for any game. If you own an attachable controller for phones, an alternative is Mantis Gamepad Pro. How to create a virtual CD-ROM for old games that require a CD to play. First, make sure you extracted the CD contents. Create a new drive in the Containers Drivers tab. Make sure to select the directory that contains the files of the CD. Boot up the container, go to Start menu, Wine Configuration, the Drives tab, select the drive you previously created, tap on Show Advanced, make sure the type is set as CD-ROM. Tap Apply, OK, and done. This just came in last minute. How to set up Mangu HUD. AJAY has updated his mod to introduce Coffincolors Work in Progress Mangu HUD. If you have already installed AJAY's Prefix mod, then continue watching. Otherwise, go back a few steps to follow the instructions of installing AJAY's Prefix mod. Open up the container settings and environment variables list, and add the following to the list. Mangu HUD = 1. Then boot up the container, go to Start menu, AJAY Start menu, Components, Fixes, Mangu HUD for Winlator, and run the Install Mangu HUD debug bat. And done. Mangu HUD will show up on any games. And that's it for this comprehensive guide. I hope I was clear enough, and this helps a lot of you to set up Winlator. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Make sure to like and subscribe if you like this video. Thank you for watching. Peace out.